You're listening to Paris Live AM, the English language programme on Radio France International. Good morning and a very warm welcome to today's Paris Live. It's Saturday the 14th of January. I'm Ollie Horton. The headlines. The US Senate Intelligence Committee says it will conduct a probe into recent reports of Moscow's interference in the 2016 presidential election and possible ties to US parties. A year and a half after Volkswagen's Dieselgate erupted, French prosecutors probe Renault over possible cheating in diesel emissions, sending the carmaker's shares sliding on the stock exchange. And the African Union declares it will no longer recognise the Gambia's President Yahya Jammeh as head of state as of next Thursday when his term ends. This comes as efforts by ECOWAS mediators to broker a deal to end the crisis appear to flounder. And coming up later, we'll have some sports news and a look at the African press with Michael Fitzpatrick. Do stay with us. RFI. The US Senate Intelligence Committee has announced it will conduct a probe into Russian spying, saying recent reports of Moscow's interference in the 2016 presidential election and possible ties to US parties raise profound concerns. The probe, supported by both Democrats and Republicans on the panel, will examine whether there were any contacts between Russia and people associated with the US political campaigns. Officials of both Barack Obama's outgoing administration and the incoming government of Donald Trump could be forced to testify. Here is Nancy Pelosi, the Democrat former Speaker of the House of Representatives.
The American people are owed the truth, and there is a great deal of evidence to say that this is an issue of high interest to the American people, the strength, the integrity of our own democracy.
Trump announced via social media yesterday that his team will also produce a report on hacking within 90 days. This follows the release of an unproven dossier alleging that Russian security officials have compromising material which could be used to blackmail Trump. Trump, who will take office in a week, has admitted Russians were involved in hacking during the election but rejected suggestions that the interference had aided his victory. The US House of Representatives yesterday joined the Senate in passing a critical measure that marks the first major step towards repealing outgoing President Obama's landmark healthcare reform. The majority vote approves a budget measure which provides Republicans, who control both chambers of Congress, with a framework for dismantling the Affordable Care Act. Democrats warned that scrapping the law known as Obamacare could result in tens of millions of Americans losing coverage. Charlie Dent, one of the 9 House Republicans who voted against the resolution, also expressed reservations about quickly repealing parts of Obamacare without a credible replacement at the ready. French investigators are set to look into carmaker Renault over suspected cheating in emissions tests on high-polluting diesel engines. RFI's Tony Cross has more on this.
Renault's shares fell on the Paris Stock Exchange in reaction to news that 3 magistrates have been assigned to look into suspicions that the carmaker cheated on emission tests for diesel engines. The accusation arises from tests on motor vehicles sold in France, ordered by the government following 2015's Dieselgate scandal, in which Germany's Volkswagen was accused of emission tests fraud. They found several Renault vehicles over the limit for nitrous oxide emissions, allegedly because the company's criteria were less demanding than its competitors. Renault denies any cheating, saying it has always respected French and European law and insisting that its vehicles are not fitted with software for fraud of pollution rules. US officials this week said that Volkswagen will plead guilty to 3 criminal charges relating to emissions cheating and has agreed to pay a fine. And again, in the US, Fiat Chrysler was charged on Thursday with hiding software in 104,000 diesel trucks sold in the US. It denies the charges.
Staying in France, Socialist Party politicians hoping to win a nomination for the presidential election have sparred in their first televised debate on Thursday night. A US-style primary vote will be held later this month. 7 hopefuls took part in the 2.5-hour debate, all of them seeking to fight widespread pessimism about their party's chances in the May elections. Centrist ex-Prime Minister Manuel Valls faced a strong challenge from more left-wing rivals and past cabinet colleagues Arnaud Montebourg and Benoît Hamon. The discussions focused on the economy and unemployment, with candidates discussing the merits of universal basic income. Political scientist Thomas Guénolé says it's difficult to guess who will win this year's presidential election.
I don't know yet what will the stream for the first round of the presidential election, and I think nobody can know, because historically, for a presidential election at the end of April, things become to be clear somewhere between February and March, because those who don't have the time and the luxury to follow closely political debates and political life, they begin to get interested at that time. The electoral situation is extremely volatile. It means that you've got more and more populations that decide who they vote for at the very last minute. Strong trends now are basically Macron, Mélenchon, Le Pen.
The African Union has declared it will no longer recognise the Gambia's President Yahya Jammeh as head of state as of next Thursday when his term ends. The bloc called on Jammeh to respect the constitution and cede power to the winner of the December 1st poll, Adama Barrow, or face serious consequences. But Jammeh has said he wants to wait for the Supreme Court to sit and hear his legal challenge, but this could take months. Meanwhile, Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari and other ECOWAS mediators met with Jammeh yesterday to try and broker a deal, but the latest talks appear to have failed. Nigerian MPs voted late Thursday night to grant asylum to Jammeh if he accepts defeat. Correspondent Alpha Jallo is in the border town of Karang. He explains that there still is hope that mediation will deliver results.
I think this mediation, especially the second round of mediation, as you can recall, when ECOWAS led a delegation there, for the first time, no results was achieved. But just about 2 days ago, Jammeh, addressed the nation. He came late, on TV around midnight on Thursday, and he was his address was mainly talking about, reconciliation, forgiveness, amnesty. So people are thinking that, since Jammeh is, now backtracking, he is now changing his tunes. Maybe this time, if the ECOWAS come, maybe they will find a breakthrough with Jammeh. People are very much optimistic that this time, before ECOWAS finish their talks here, they may reach a breakthrough with Jammeh. If these are high expectations from both Gambians and even Senegalese who live along the side of the border here.
Meanwhile, the prolonged political uncertainty and fear of unrest has pushed thousands of Gambians across the border into neighbouring Senegal and further afield to Guinea-Bissau. The government of Côte d'Ivoire and rebel troops have reached a final deal over pay and conditions after a tense day of talks in Bouaké. Soldiers there mutinied early this month, demanding bonuses, better pay and housing. Their protests quickly spread to other cities, leading to a reshuffle in top security ranks ordered by President Alassane Ouattara. While an initial deal had been reached almost a week ago, talks on implementing the agreement only began yesterday, and tensions were high with rebel troops firing into the air at several barracks across the country. A local official said that the troops have now agreed to return to their barracks and have managed to attain a bonus of around €7,500. In Mexico, an opposition senator is warning that dramatic domestic hikes in gasoline prices will spike and cripple the country's fragile economy. The first increase taking effect on January 1st was 20%, but more are on the way. Correspondent James Blears reports.
Senator Mario Delgado, a former finance minister for the government of Mexico City, says a report from the finance ministry of the national government indicates that the price of gasoline will increase again on February the 4th, February the 11th, and as of February the 18th it can rise daily. After March 30th, price controls will be completely deregulated. Delgado warns Mexico simply isn't geared up for this radical energy reform, and it's going to spell utter disaster for the economy.
We are seeing now the increase in the prices of the very basic products. And if you have inflation, who is the most affected? The poorest people. So the social cost of this is going to be huge.
The Mexican Minister of Economy, Ildefonso Guajardo, has yet to grant an interview in spite of repeated requests. James Blears, RFI, Mexico.
A French judge has charged the alleged mastermind with the spectacular Paris robbery of jewellery worth €9 million belonging to the US reality TV star Kim Kardashian. The 60-year-old, named as Omar A., was among 6 suspects charged yesterday over the October 3 robbery, during which the celebrity was bound and gagged at gunpoint, then locked in a bathroom at the luxury residence where she was staying during Paris Fashion Week. A total of 10 people have now been charged, including 5 accused of playing a direct role in robbing the 36-year-old. Sources close to the probe said the BRB Special Police Unit in charge of armed robberies began watching Omar A., who was sentenced to 7 years in prison for armed robbery in 1985 after finding his DNA at the scene on materials used to tie Kardashian up. You're listening to Paris Live AM on Radio France International.